Today we'll be going over the genetics vocabulary words. Some of these words will be repeats for you and other words will be new. One is gamete. This is a repeat word. These are a general name given to a sexual reproductive cells. We know that the male gamete is the sperm and the female gamete would be the egg. Number two are somatic cells. These are your body cells, so every cell in your body, but not the gametes. Homologous chromosomes. These are a pair of chromosomes. They match in the size of them and the arrangement of the genes, but obviously are going to differ in the actual DNA that is encoded in those genes. As I explained to my classes, is that it's like all of mom's chromosomes find dad's chromosomes. So here in spot number 1, we see 2 homologous chromosomes. Spot 2 would be another 2 homologous chromosomes. Spot 3 homologous chromosomes, and so on and so forth. So this is what your chromosomes look like in your cells. And then the last spot here is reserved for your sex chromosomes. And this would be a male since the chromosomes are X and a Y. If it was female, it would be XX. Diploid, haploid, and meiosis, these are all repeat words as well. When we talk about a diploid cell, we're talking about a cell that has all 46 chromosomes inside of them. So these would be your somatic cells. We represent that with 2n, 2 times the number. So 23 pairs, 2 times 23 would be 46. Haploid is the name of chromosomes or name of a cell that would contain only 1 chromosome of each homologous pair, so half the normal number. So if the normal number, n, is 23, then that would be the haploid number. Number 6, meiosis. This is a process that turns a diploid cell into a haploid cell. So this is the production of gametes. Some new vocab words. 7 is genetics, and that is the study of heredity. That is the name of the chapter that we are now in. Chromosome theory states really that chromosomes are the carriers of hereditary traits and carry genes for many traits. A gene, this is actually, I believe we've had this word before, but it's a short segment of DNA. So it's not the whole molecule of DNA. It is a short segment of DNA that contains the coding for a particular protein. Alleles. This word has come up a few times, but now we are finally getting to it. So an allele is known as an alternative form of a gene that controls a particular trait. For example, if we're talking about eye color, there would be an allele for brown and an allele for blue. So those are 2 types of the trait, so brown eyes, blue eyes, so there would be an allele for brown and an allele for blue. A chromosome map, it's a diagram of allele positions on a chromosome, so we are actually able to map out where particular genes are located on our chromosomes. So chromosome 6, for example, that's where you're going to find the gene for whether you have epilepsy or not. Chromosome 7, whether you have cystic fibrosis or not, or if you're genetically predisposed to obesity. Here's another chromosome map. Your blood type is determined on chromosome number 9 in that location. Dwarfism and Huntington's disease are up here on chromosome 4. So you could pause the video here and just look around if you'd like at different traits. A karyotype, we've seen this on one of the previous slides here, but it's a picture of an individual's chromosomes, and we put those chromosomes in their homologous pairs, and then we line them up from largest in spot number 1 to smallest in spot 22. And as I said, the sex chromosomes are kind of off here on their own in spot 23, XY for males and XX for females. Number 13 is sex chromosomes. These are in that spot 23 on our karyotype. Once again, I've said that there is XX for females and XY for males. All of these, either XX or XY, would be in all of your somatic cells. but in your gametes, you'd either have an X or a Y if you're a man, and if you're a female, an X is your only option, XX. Okay, so X for one gamete, X for another gamete. Number 14, autosomes. These are all your chromosomes that are not your sex chromosomes, so in spots 1 through 22. 15 is a mutation. This is any change in DNA that results in a new characteristic. And that new characteristic can often, if that is happening in the gametes, that can be inherited by future generations. Number 16, a mutagen is something that's going to cause a mutation. It's typically an environmental factor like radiation or pollution or something that's going to damage the DNA and cause a change in that DNA. A somatic mutation is a mutation that happens in one of your body cells that cannot be passed down to offspring. So an example of this would be skin cancer. Skin cancer is obtained from the environment, from your sunlight exposure, and that cannot be passed down to offspring. 18, germ cell mutation. Germ cells, that's another name for your gametes. So if the mutation happens in a gamete, that's happening in the sperm or in the egg, so that mutation would be able to be passed down to future generations. Number 19, a point or gene mutation happens when there is a change of a single base within a segment of DNA. So one base is changed and therefore it causes a genetic disorder like sickle cell disease or PKU, which we'll talk about. Okay. Sickle cell disease or sickle cell anemia is a genetic disease in which the blood cells exhibit a sickle shape here. This is what they are supposed to look like. And this is because of one incorrect amino acid within the amino acid sequence. What the problem is when the blood cells become sickle shaped, they clump together, they kind of hook onto each other, and they clump together in the blood vessels and prevent blood from supplying oxygen to the tissues. So if cells aren't getting enough oxygen, your cells can die, really. PKU, phenylketonuria. This is a genetic disorder that all babies are tested. If you're born in the hospital, all babies are tested for this at birth. They do a little heel prick. And what happens is if you have PKU, phenylalanine builds up. And really when you're consuming breast milk, formula as a baby, you're going to have phenylalanine in that. So babies that have PKU and people that have PKU, they can't break down phenylalanine. And the problem with that is when phenylalanine builds up, it can cause brain damage. So every baby's tested for it because if you're tested for it, you're just put on a special diet, and that diet can prevent the brain damage. You have to follow that special diet essentially your whole life. However, if you follow that diet, you'll be fine. Whereas if it's not followed early on, there will be some sort of an intellectual disability that forms in that baby. Number 22 is chromosome mutation. This is a change occurring in a chromosome involving many genes. So we have not just a single gene that's mutated, but a whole portion of a chromosome, such as Cry-Duchat syndrome, which you can Google that. And then 23, crossing over. This is a process during meiosis that creates more genetic diversity. Happens in prophase 1 of meiosis. Here's Cry-Duchat syndrome. So Cry-Duchat syndrome, this is what the two chromosomes should look like. And in Cry-Duchat syndrome, a whole top of a chromosome is missing. So that can cause these sort of symptoms in the developing child. 24, genetic recombination. This is what happens as a result of crossing over. So we have those chromosomes exchanging information. 25, non-disjunction. This is a mutation that happens when chromosomes don't split correctly during meiosis. That can cause, non-disjunction can cause monosomy, where a cell is missing a chromosome. Or it can cause, number 28, trisomy, where you have an extra chromosome. So an example of monosomy would be number 27, Turner syndrome. And someone with Turner syndrome, they have monosomy 23. So this person would be female. This person would have one X chromosome, so only one X. So they should be XX, but this person has one X. So unfortunately, that person will become sterile, meaning she cannot have children. She is short. She would have a webbed neck. However, an intellectual disability is not normally part of the syndrome, so their brain development is fine. Once again, someone who has trisomy would have an extra chromosome instead of missing one, so they'd have 47 chromosomes instead of 46. There are a couple examples of this. Trisomy 21, or Down syndrome, is an example of trisomy. So someone who has Down syndrome, you probably have seen this. You've probably known someone that has Down syndrome. It results in varying degrees of intellectual disability and also physical deformity. And there are varying, like I said, varying degrees of that. So there are some people that can live normally in society and other people who will never be able to live on their own. There's a male with Down syndrome. So all the autosomes are correct except for the 21st. There are 3 copies, but there's an XY for a male. And here's a female with Down syndrome. Klinefelter syndrome is trisomy 23, where someone would have 2 X chromosomes and also a Y. So the sperm contained the X and the Y, fertilized a normal egg that just had the X, so X from the egg, and then an XY from the sperm. This person would be male because of that Y chromosome, but unfortunately would be sterile. And sometimes they develop secondary sex characteristics of a female. Sometimes intellectual disability is part of this syndrome as well. So here's what that karyotype looks like, XXY. And here is a diagram depicting someone with Turner syndrome and someone with Klinefelter syndrome. So you could pause the video and look at the differences here. Tw 31, fraternal twins. Fraternal twins are individuals that develop at the same time, but from 2 different egg and 2 different sperm. So mom released 2 eggs. They were fertilized by 2 different sperm. So fraternal twins do not have to look alike or even be the same sex. You could have 2 girls, 2 boys, a boy and a girl. These individuals are no more related or less related than just normal siblings. It just so happens that they were developed at the same time. Identical twins, however, develop from a single fertilized egg cell, so they have the same DNA. And that is it on the vocab words. If you have any questions, please let us know. I hope you have a great day.